Now, look, there are three things in life that you should be fearful of. Spiders that lay eggs in your ears, Super AIDS, and Big Brother. No, not the crappy TV show, the other one. Whenever you surf the web, call a loved one, or even step outside, Big Brother may be watching. Advancing technology, combined with increasing paranoia over crime and terrorism, is resulting in innocent citizens being tracked more than ever. Our government is currently involved in landmark court cases for tapping email and phone calls without warrants in the name of national security. And across the pond in London, 10,000 surveillance cameras cover a 1 square mile radius with 2.5 million cameras in total keeping tabs on the British. Some say that the increased presence of Big Brother makes them feel safer, but others are concerned for their privacy, as some Americans are being recorded on camera at least 300 times a day. Should the government record our every move for our own safety? Or is their surveillance endangering our privacy? Big Brother is definitely watching. It's The Loop. All right, my guest tonight, editor-in-chief for the blog SoCalPundit.com, Kevin Korenthal is here, and staff attorney for the ACLU, Peter Biebering. Welcome to The Loop, everybody. Let's get right into this. A recent poll, which was shocking to me, says 71% of Americans actually favor increased surveillance in their daily lives. I mean, Kevin, why do they do this? Does it make them feel safer, or do they think that increased security is actually really going to help that?
Well, I think beyond the fact that George Orwell warned everyone about this way back in his book 1984, I think because of the fact that CCTV has come on over time over the last several decades, it started out in the casinos and the department stores, people have just gradually seen cameras come into their life. And when you add the benefit that people get a real sense that the area is safer if someone is watching that particular area, I think people have just come to accept it as a minor hindrance that they mostly don't even think about. Sure,
but Peter, accepting it because, you become accustomed to seeing these cameras everywhere, that's one thing. Actually lusting for and wanting more surveillance, what's going on there?
Well, I think it's exactly that it has crept up slowly and people don't think about it. We had in Southern California recently a circumstance where a small town put a bunch of cameras downtown. Nobody thought anything of it until they started arresting people for drunk driving because they watched them staggering to their cars at night. And once everybody realized that there was some guy watching them on Saturday night, they started to worry about it. There was a big outcry. And I think it's exactly that it has crept up that has lulled people into the sense of security.
But there's a definite benefit to that because less drunk drivers are going to be on the road because they know that cameras are there watching them. I think that's a net benefit, not a detraction.
Well, the studies, though, in Britain, where, as you heard on the intro, there are 2.5 million cameras, show that, in fact, cameras don't make areas safer. People are willing to trade some privacy for some increase in security, maybe, but one of the things that our studies have shown is that cameras don't make you safer. They don't decrease crime comparable to areas that don't have cameras.
I don't know. I would suggest that those studies must be flawed because if people are getting the idea that there are cameras watching their every move, they are less likely to commit the type of crimes that they can be caught doing.
It sounds great, but the British Home Office, the government in Britain who put out all those cameras on the street, are the ones that did the studies showing that they don't actually work all that well.
Well, I haven't seen those studies, so I guess I'd have to bone up on that a little bit more.
Well, one thing that we've all definitely seen, though, is a little site called Google. And in fact, earlier this year, they released Google Maps and a feature with Street View, which actually revealed people in sort of vulnerable moments, if you will, whether they're picking their nose or entering an adult film store. I mean, Peter, some would say that that's actually more of a threat to our privacy because the data is public. Would you agree?
That's certainly a huge concern. Big corporations, Google and other corporations that collect data on things like medical information or social security numbers are a huge threat to privacy, and the government should be allowed to regulate that in some way.
I've actually been wandering around the streets of Los Angeles trying to get myself in one of these photographs, but have been completely unsuccessful so far.
And yet the moment that you walk into Big Daddy's bookstore on Pico, they're going to snap the photo of you trying to hide your face, right? Now, Kevin, Google was also subpoenaed by the Justice Department to turn in web searches, though. I mean, and it's one thing for Google to drive a van down a street. It's another thing for them to turn over the terms that you're using, which could be threatening to the safety of Americans. Do you think people would stop using Google if they knew that it could actually be used against them?
Well, I think if Google was offering up IP addresses or information about the people that are making these queries, that would be a problem. But I think what the federal government is wanting to learn here is who is looking up things about pedophilia? Who's looking up ways to make C4? And I really don't think that's very harmful. And your average American who is worried about something like that really needs to grab a paper bag and breathe really deeply into it.
Well, but then on the flip side, and I'll go to Kevin on this one, I mean, yeah, they're not asking for IP addresses yet, but once they find someone searching for 12-year-old boys in C14 in the same search query, aren't they then going to try to get that IP address from Google, and will Google turn it over?
I would not support something like that. That would be a complete invasion of one's internet privacy.
Peter, do you think it could happen in this day and age?
Absolutely. And the other danger is that while they're looking for somebody who's looking for C4 or pedophilia, they'll find somebody who's doing something else, something more innocent, something that maybe you are doing at home right now. And that's the person that they'll end up going after.
Well, I think there's this natural assumption by the ACLU and their supporters to automatically take everything to its worst possible scenario, its worst possible abuse level. I really don't see that happening. I don't see Google acquiescing to such a ridiculous request as to start turning over information about people's actual search inquiries with their actual IP addresses or information about them.
Maybe not Google now, but maybe somebody else later.
Sure.
An easy, slippery slope.
All right, well, let's get to the final word here. For the minority of Americans who actually don't want more surveillance, and that's odd to say that they're the minority, is there any hope? Kevin, I'll start with you.
Well, I think there's some uninhabited ranch property in the middle of the U.S. somewhere where there's no cameras and probably no satellites pointed at it. But, short of that, this is something that's here to stay, and people should get used to it and be comfortable.
Peter, your thoughts?
I think that people are waking up. It's been creeping up for a long time, but people are starting to realize that they don't like the government's eyes on them all the time.
All right, I want to thank our guests, Kevin and Peter, for keeping us in the loop. Appreciate it, guys.
Attack of the Show, weeknights at 7, only on G4.